Hi, everyone. Brittany Brown here, founder of Beating Binge Eating Blueprints. And I am here with Caitlin, who is one of our graduates. So, Caitlin, hey, thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me, Brittany.
Of course. Okay, so Caitlin had like a really difficult struggle with binge and emotional eating and just really like an unhappy relationship with food and body since her mid-teens, so for about 15 years. And then she comes in our program and shifts things really quickly. And now she's in a place of power with her food. So this interview, I'm going to be really digging deep, asking Caitlin some questions of what made that possible. So for you watching, you can definitely learn and have some takeaways so you can be supported on your journey too. So, Caitlin, a bunch of places we could start, but I think a great place to start is just kind of talking about where you were pre beating binge eating program, like what your relationship with food was like, what life was like, all of that.
Yeah, oh man. Okay, so prior to doing the program, I feel like, I summed it up basically as I was hiding. I was hiding from life. I felt like I was running with fear away from everything and anything. But it was all internal. That was my internal experience. My external experience was amazing. People probably envied what I was doing. I was working through my master's degree at the time when I found the program, and I was the only one in my entire family who had gone and gotten a master's. I was working like crazy, since doing the program, I've realized that I was a workaholic, and that was my avoidance strategy. um, One of the avoidance strategies for getting away from food. Um, but yeah, so I had basically like everything going for me, but internal, I was I was so unhappy. I was so caged, and I was desperate for a change.
Yeah, yeah.
hmm
And I know how long ago you graduated, but if you could just tell everyone else, how long have you been out of the program?
Yeah, so I've been out of the program now for almost a year.
Hmm.
I remember I signed up sometime around July, and then I went through the program in August and September, and now it's almost August of the next year.
Yeah, it's so crazy how much can happen in a year. And I'm so excited to talk a little bit more about that because I know a lot of things have shifted for you since graduating. So
Yeah.
okay, great. So yes, like lots of hiding, lots of this behavior with food that was kind of, so on the outside, you're doing all these things, but inside the fear, the shame, and so forth. And then like actually with the food, what did that look like? Was there binging every day? Was there binging once every 2 months? Like what was the food piece?
Yeah. So for me, I was a workout person. Um, so I would work out a ton. And then after I would work out, it was like I was working out to eat essentially. And I was just like beating my body into submission through that process. So I was always, for quite a long period of time during my struggle, I was counting calories. I think I counted calories every day for 4 years, until I finally let that go. And it was excruciating to not do that for a while. What else? I would, so I had experiences where I would restrict food and I would tell my friends like, oh, I don't eat that. Or I would tell my family like, I'm not eating that right now. And then what would end up happening is classic. I would go home and I would want to eat it, so that I would end up eating it. Or I'd end up eating foods that weren't that. And then finally, after I was done eating the foods that weren't that, I would still want the other food. And then finally, I would just cave and eat the other food. And at that point, I would just be like incredibly full. That was the nature of my binges. As far as every day, it wasn't every day, but there definitely was a lot of time. It was cyclical. So I would go in waves. And it usually always happened when things were really chaotic in my life. So if I was struggling with a relationship, or if I was struggling with something in school, it was definitely a coping mechanism for me. It was an avoidance strategy, procrastination technique. It was, thinking about it now, I've come so far. It's incredible. Like, I was blown away when I was preparing for this interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you've come so far. And I think it's cool to do these interviews so far out because you reflect back and you're like, whoa, like it's almost even hard to relate to some of those patterns and things, And I'm curious,
Yeah.
I know you were vegan or vegetarian, correct, when you were going through the program. Are you still?
Yeah. Yes. Right now I'm definitely an empowered plant-based eater. And that's more so, it's a lifestyle choice. So I've shifted so much of who I am since I went through the program. I realized that my relationship to pretty much everything in my life was abusive, just like my relationship to my body. And for me, what abuse was kind of constituting was this overworking personality. And so since shifting, I was on a trajectory to be teaching at a university. I got out of that job, and now I've started a whole a healing career, and I'm working for myself. So I'm doing sound healing and Reiki healing, and I create malas that are infused with Reiki energy, and do jewelry in relation to that. And then I also have a design consulting business. So I'm working for myself so I can work when I want, where I want, how I want, really similar to how I am with food. So it's like I'm eating what I want, when I want, where I want. And it all kind of goes down to this mission that I have, which is to be as nourishing and loving towards my body, which ultimately I see as the earth. And I see as, how can I live a life that's the most sustainable for everything in my environment? Because I look at me and I see everything. Like, I look outside myself and I see the trees and I'm like, that's me. How can I do the least amount of harm possible? So yeah, I eat mostly plant-based and honey. And then, I've gotten to the point where before that was a restrictive technique, but now it's like, I don't even think about it being restrictive. It's just what I do. It's who I am. It's what feels good in my body. And if that ever changes, I'm open to it changing. Like, if one day I wake up and I'm like, I need to eat a deer right now, I'll go eat a deer. But I'm like, at this point, it's not how it is. So
yeah, I love that. I asked that because, so many of our interviews that we do, everyone talks about giving up restriction, giving up restriction, giving up restriction, giving up control. And I think it scares some people. Like, I think they're like, especially someone who believes in veganism, like from a perspective of contributing to the planet and a ethical perspective and a moral perspective, right? And then they're like, oh, do I have to give up this part of myself to have success in the program? And so I asked that. One, I was curious just to see, where it was at. And two, like, you were able to transcend this while not sacrificing yourself, your morals, and what really felt right to you through staying connected to yourself, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, and I will say one more thing on that. While I was in the program, I totally released all restriction, and I allowed myself to eat whatever. So I honored your system because, like, who am I? I'm small brain Caitlin over here when I'm in the program. Like, I'm willing to transcend to that higher brain for you. So and for me ultimately, but yeah, so I released all restriction, and I was like, okay, if I want to eat something, I'll eat it. And that's actually how it worked for a while. I would go to, like, for instance, I would go to family gatherings, and I tried it out. Like, if I was because I was eating mostly vegetarian. And then when I would go to family gatherings, I would eat the meat and whatever else was there, like, to enjoy the holiday, just like the things you've recommended. And I would do that, and I'd feel good about it. But then afterwards, I would actually, I would listen to my body and I'd be like, body, do you like that food? Was that the food that you wanted to eat? And what I realized after doing that for a few months is that really, like, I was really, 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 really wanting to be wholly plant-based. And so I was in some ways feeling like after I tried it, like in the moment, it was good for me. But then long term, I was like, no, I think I can make the commitment. And I have since. So,
yeah, I love that. I think that's beautiful. So it's like really embracing the kind of like what we call present moment decisions. Like, hey, I'm at a family function. Like before I would have not let myself have this stuff. Let me try it. And, you know, it doesn't mean you have to force feed yourself to eat meat at the family function, but it was there, you try it, and then you realize it's not really working for your body and you choose what does. And that's ultimately what we stand behind, right? Is like present moment decisions that honor you and your body and how you want to feel. And also like your well-being and your life experiences and those things. So yeah, I think that's really incredible. And I'm curious, you know, we've kind of shined a little light on it, but now a year out, what is like your relationship? Let's start with your relationship with food in your body. Like, how is that different? And then we can talk about life a little bit too.
Yeah. So food in my body, I wake up and I eat. I don't think about like waking up and, oh geez, what am I going to eat today?
Yeah.
What am I not going to eat today? I don't panic about having food or not having food. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to restrict myself in any way. The plotting and planning, that was a huge thing for me, was like, okay, well, I know I have this thing coming up later. I shouldn't eat now. That's not even part of who I am anymore. That's a huge thing. That's like weight off my shoulders. Events coming up, like thinking about going into a wedding or anything like that, I was definitely someone who was like pre-prepping, like needing to work out a bunch before or needing to eat, not eat. And that's not part of who I am anymore at all. I definitely feel free in relationship to food and my body. And honestly, like when I found the program, I didn't know if it was going to work. It was like, I'm willing to take the risk on it. And I did. And even during it, there were moments where I'm like, who knows if this is going to work? Like, who knows if I can believe in myself? But I can honestly say that I know I said this on Facebook once, but it's really, really, really true. Like the money I put into this program was like a million times worth it. Much, much, much more than like the journey to understanding myself has been so much more valuable than I feel like my entire graduate school career. Like, yes, I learned a ton in graduate school, but it's like getting to know me and my processes has made me so wise and made me so aware of how to be in the world and how to develop more loving relationships, not only like with my own body, but with other people. Like everything in terms of my relationships with other people and my work, and it all has changed. It's all centered around love, real love, not like fighting love. Like before, I think if you asked me what the definition of love was, I would have been like, well, you have to control them. Like I wouldn't have explicitly said this, but like, if you think about it, like the relationship I had to my body was like control, restriction, fighting, like, and that was clear in my relationships. I remember manifesting partners that I would fight with when I was in love with them, supposedly. And now it's not like that at all. So it's just that idea of like how you do anything is how you do everything, really reigns true for me. And it wasn't until I healed the relationship with myself and my body that I was able to, I feel like, blossom in all other areas of my life.
Yeah, yeah, that's so
Hmm.
beautiful. And thank you for that. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I remember just like how much you showed up in the program. And I know you couldn't get a lot of calls, but like you were such an avid member in the group and it was
Yeah.
just like this unfolding. Like I always talk about it. It's like a flower, like blooming one petal at a time, right? And it was just this like unfolding of you truly just like peeling back the layers and returning back to yourself and you and your power, which I think is so beautiful. And then you mentioned earlier, then you like embrace this whole like entrepreneurship and healing. And yeah, I know you have your jewelry line, which by the way, when we email this out, we'll put a little link to her jewelry because it's beautiful. I'm just so proud of you for
Oh,
like all you've done in only a year, like incredible transformations in just a year.
yeah. You can do anything in a year. Improve for sure.
It's crazy, right? Like I looked at something the other day. I saw a picture of myself that was only 2 years ago. And I was like, I literally feel like five different humans have transcended since that person two
Yes.
years ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like so much can happen literally in just a few weeks even. So, okay. I'm curious, biggest takeaways. So like the people watching this video have like they've already gotten a bunch of nuggets of wisdom that'll support them. But like, looking back, those few, like one or two things that really supported you on your journey.
Yeah. I would say there is so something about there's something about the way that you hold your own, Brittany, your own trust for the universe and the way you've structured your business. I remember when I found the program, it just like showed up at the exact right time for me. It was like the universe just dropped it in my lap, and I was like, "Yep, that's the answer." And um, and so I think the fact that you have this spiritually based business that literally like trusts in the universe for its success, um, and then you talk about that on the phone calls. Like the phone calls, I remember you saying one or two times, or maybe it was all times, but it's like whatever is going to happen will happen, and it'll be exactly what you need to hear. Um, and it truly was every single time. There was someone on the phone every single time that was like a mirror reflection of myself. And I was like, holy shit, I'm not alone. There's other people doing this. That was a huge awakening for me. So I would say if you're going to go through the program, show up for the calls because they were incredibly powerful. The community support was incredible. Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, I love that. That's really
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like we have the spiritual like undertone through everything and we don't always talk about it, right? But there's still
Mm-hmm.
the like act of trusting. Like I just got off an interview with another graduate, Dottie, who she started in August. So you guys had a little overlap together
Yeah.
and she's amazing. And she was just talking about like the trust, like just putting like just almost having to have blind faith almost that like this was it and if we just follow the
Yeah.
plan like it'll come together. So yeah, I'm so with you there.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trust. You have to trust. Like you have to be able to trust the science, trust trying something new, trust enough to trust yourself. Honestly, it's yeah, there's so much trust.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So okay, so that place like when you first found our stuff and it resonates, right? Because we do pull from a lot of different angles. And just disclaimer for anyone watching, like, yes, it does have the spiritual undertone and like everything's rooted in science. Even if I'm talking about spirituality, it's like also backed in quantum physics and things. Like there's this component of like natural universal law. If I am talking about something, not just like I'm not just pushing my belief out there, right? It's like in accordance with universal law, in accordance with physics, in accordance with brain science or whatever that might be. And so, I'm curious, like people come across our stuff for the first time and they'll usually have that feeling of like, whoa, this really resonates. But then so much fear comes up. like fear of like, I've tried a million things, fear of I've been doing this for 30 years. So yeah, what would you say to someone, like what makes this journey different? What would you say to someone who has like in that place of fear and contemplating doing it alone and those kind of things?
Yeah. Well, first off, you don't do it alone. There
Please
is
don't.
a huge community. Yeah, no, you don't do it alone. And you tell people, you talk about it. I remember one of my really close friends, I only really shared the journey while I was on it with a few really close friends because, and I had to tell like the people I was living with for sure. And they became like my immediate support group, like them knowing it and also holding my best interest was like, I'm like starting to cry right now, was really, really, really powerful for me. And then meeting all the other women online was also just really, again, super powerful and comforting to know that if I was ever struggling, I could go on there and reach out for support. Or if I was in a really high place, I could go on there and support other women who might be at a low place because I've been there before. And like, it makes it so much easier when you give, like the giving part, when you think you have nothing to give and you give to someone else, like it makes your experience so much, or at least for me, it made my experience so much greater. So the community was a huge part that really, yeah, just like helped me out. And I wouldn't have been able to find that without this program.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, your journey was such an incredible one, and your participation and support for everyone was so awesome. I saw your name on the schedule today, and I'm like, yes, because we haven't really. I mean, we've kept in touch online, but like, yeah, just hearing how you're doing a year later and stuff, it's so incredible. So, Caitlin, this was amazing. I am so proud of you. I like you inspire me. Like I'll see your posts and stuff and I'm like, yeah, she's out there just rocking it, doing her thing. I'm like, and just, I can tell a lot of your shares like come from the real you, like that highest version of you, that like deeply connected part of you that is unfolding more and more on your journey. So I just think it's incredible. So before we wrap up, like and you don't, this can be it, or is there any last things you want to share, say, comments, anything before we go?
Yeah. Just, I think just the most love, like love. It's all about love. And I think that's what I found in your program was a whole new level of for myself and for everything in the entire universe. It's just, it helped with that unfoldment for me, opening my heart so much. It was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Brittany.
Yeah, you're so welcome, Caitlin. And one thing on that, and you and I can just chat about it a little bit. Like, I think when people, that's beautiful. And I think when people are like in that really dark space, like where they can't even make eye contact with the mirror, you know what I mean? Like they despise their behavior themselves. Like they're so mad and upset with themselves or whatever that might be, that they hear a word like love and they're thinking like, body affirmations don't work for me. Self-love doesn't work for me. I've tried it before. Yeah. Anything I can share what I would say to those people, but like anything you would say to that, cause it's, yeah.
I wrote something down that's like so good. I'm trying to find the piece of paper.
Take your time.
It was, where is it?
Yeah. And for anyone watching, these questions are kind of popping up as we're going along. So
yeah, I think, okay. Oh geez. Okay. So yes, I wrote something down about this, that idea of anyone who's, just like struggling and not sure. And the question that really changed, like was the tipping point for me to join the program, was when we were on the call and you said something to me of like, what would you do with all the time that you spend thinking about your food and your body if you didn't have that struggle? And that like hit me so hard right here in my chest that I was like, holy shit, like I'm spending all of this time hating myself and fighting myself and not honoring the goddess that I am. How can I, like, what would I do? And there was all of this like outpouring of like, I want to help people. I want to be there for other people. I don't want to be so selfish. Like, it really just, yeah, it just got me in touch with that feeling of like, stop hiding behind this. Why are you hiding your real self? Why are you hiding who you are with this disguise of this broken person when you're not broken, you know? And those weren't necessarily the words that I thought at the time, but that was the feeling. And now I feel like after the year, I've got words for it. So it might be a little far out there for people that are just coming to the program, but like that is the truth. It is the truth that like all a struggle is with anything in your own body, for me at least, is a small aspect of taking the love away. And there's no need to do that.
Yeah.
We should only love ourselves, you know?
It's so true. It's so true. And like at first I think love, like maybe it doesn't look like love for everyone, but it could be nurturing or like compassion or just ease or like care, you know, like love through action. Right. And then I think as you build up that love through action, you start like your heart opens and you start like you're caring for yourself and you actually start to feel it. And it builds. And yeah, it's really beautiful. So thank you for that. I think, yeah, what a great realization for yourself. And then I know this will just totally inspire others for sure.
Yeah.